Hello, welcome back. We're going to do something a little different this time. We're going to be taking the code that we have, and I'm going to be showing you some workflow. We're going to be working through Github, and we're going to be working through some virtual machines. All right, so we're actually going to take our code from our code pen, and we are going to go through a more professional workflow. All right, how do we actually get something out of our code besides being stuck inside of CodePen, and how can we store that forever? So what we're going to be using is GitHub, and I'm going to be using an IDE called Cloud9. You can also use, I'm looking at the name right here, Code Anywhere works pretty well too. Code Anywhere, you don't need a credit card for verification. It's just a little CAPTCHA thing on there. However, they don't really have as many autocomplete options on there, so I'm not a real big fan of that. But you don't need a credit card to sign in. Cloud9 is still free, however, so you don't really have to do that. You can even get like a gift card or something like that and then use those numbers and it'll work just fine. Just so you know. So let's get started here. I'm going to make sure I have everything up where I need it to be. My notes are good, so we can just move right along. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to go over to GitHub. So here's GitHub. All right, and you've gone through and you've already set this up previously. All right, because you've gone through freeCodeCamp, and this was one of the main steps you have to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this little plus button and create a new repository. Okay, a repository is just a place, just a directory, a file full of your other files. That's all it is. And this is where your entire project, website, app was going to live, and it's a place to permanently store this stuff. So here I am just going to call this JavaCalc. Okay. Now, whatever you name this, okay, make sure that this is going to be important, because whatever you name this, you're going to have to name your project in your IDE, because the main directory that you're going to be working from, this is going to be the main folder here. So it has to match, all right, for at least for Cloud9 that I'm using. And you can see you get these set of directions. These set of directions are very helpful. These are terminal commands. So you're going to need this. So all I've done is gone into GitHub, and I've made one. It's called JavaCalc. And that's it. So now I know that I have a project in GitHub that I can access, which is nothing more than a place to store some folders that has a name. And look at this. I even have some options, some code I can copy and paste in, just so I know I get everything right. The next thing you need to do is go over to Cloud9. Hopefully you've already gone in at this point and signed in or using an IDE. If not, pause the video, go over to cloud9.ide or .io, which is your IDE rather. And you're going to want to sign in, and you're going to want to sign in with GitHub, and that's that little kitty cat thing. And you can see I got a bunch of different tests that I've been doing, going in and out of, even see some of my Angular work too. And it's pretty simple. Once you're here, you can connect through different repositories that you have. You can share things back and forth. And you can see I still have a free account here. So I'm going to go open up, create a new workspace, and your project name here, it needs to be the same. So I mean, this is that's not what I wanted. This was JavaCalc, and I named it the same thing as I named this. All right, so my GitHub needs to match this workspace name. See, before we were just talking about a repository name in GitHub. Here we're talking about the workspace name, because we're actually going to be spinning up a virtual machine. And a virtual machine, all it is a virtual machine computer inside of somebody else's computer. That's all it is. So we're going to spin up a Linux machine, all right, inside of somebody else's computer, all right, which is what the cloud is. So here we go. I'm just going to select a HTML5 project. We're going to be using Node.js and HTML5. For all of our small projects, both of these seem to work just fine. So that'll be fine. And again, the public one, because that's going to be free. And since we've already connected your GitHub to Cloud9, if you've already followed the directions to set this up, all you really have to do is create a new workspace. So all of my guys watching this, you can see that you've already done this and got yourself to this point. And you're going to go ahead and create a workspace. You're going to see that Cloud9 is going to create a container, all right, or a new workspace. And all this is going to be is a spot on a virtual machine. And this virtual machine is going to have a limited amount of memory. It's going to have a limited amount of computing power. So you're going to see it's going to have space for your files. It's going to have a CPU allocation, and it's going to have a memory. Think of like RAM, so just like you would have a computer. All right. And what I'm going to be doing is, while this is creating my workspace, is I'm going to be going over here. You notice how we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript in these isolated little things here, and then magically we get a page. All right, so how do we actually take this out into the real world? Now, generally, you can go over to export, all right, and then, well, you can embed as well, but generally you would go to export, and that would give you a zip file. And in order to access this, you would unzip the zip file somewhere, and then you can open up the index file, and it'd be index.html, and the index.html will automatically reference the CSS and JavaScript files that are in separate folders. All right, so it's a pretty simple little thing. It just has a few folders on it, and that's all it really is. So let's take a look at this and see if we're spun up yet. Oh man, this is taking longer than usual. Usually it doesn't take this long. So let's go ahead and export this, and I will show in folder. And there's your JavaScript calculator, and so you want to export this, say, like to the desktop or something. So if I go to extract all, browse, and I'll go to my desktop, and I'll make a new folder called JavaCalc. All right, and then I'll click OK, extract, and here you go. So now, as you can see, I have a CSS file, okay, which that file just has all this CSS right here. There's a JavaScript file which has all of the text for that as well. And you notice the file structure. We have a CSS file with only one CSS file, a JavaScript file with only one index file, and then we have an index .html file, okay? And this is an HTML file. You don't see the extension in Windows, but it is there. All right, so here we go. Oops, that's up. But just so you know, if I click on this index, you can see there is my JavaScript calculator running in the browser, okay? And ta-da, it works. Good. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be recreating this whole process and really taking a look at this file structure here that we're going to be creating inside of the virtual machine itself. And here we have a README, which is fine, which we do not need. And we have this Hello World HTML5. And you can kind of see the setup of this. Notice that when we start over here, we just kind of start with a body tag and jump into the divs. Here we have to initialize this with HTML. All right, so we have this basic HTML tag here that we start with. And we also have something else here. We have this head. So we have an area called a head. And what they've gone ahead and done is they've actually added their styles inside of the head. Now, and what we're going to do is we're going to break that out into its own separate file. So I'm going to get rid of this hello world.html file because we don't need that. All right. I'm going to go and delete this. Delete. Where's delete? There's delete. Yes, I do want to remove it because I do not care about that. I'm going to drop this down and get this out of the way. All right, and what we have here in this workspace, here is our folders in our virtual machine. Notice that we have JavaCalc. So it's a directory or a folder, and it's going to match this directory or folder that's in our GitHub. We have a basic README, which is wrong, obviously, because you can change the README to say whatever it is. There's some Cloud9 files, okay, which you don't really worry about. That's just for the IDE itself. You can see your memory and CPU usage here, and you can resize this and show some processes and stuff with that if you like. There's your little icon to see who you are. You can run yourself some JavaScript. You can preview your HTML files, which that's what we do want to do. And there's a bunch of options to kind of play with and work with. Down here is our Linux terminal. Okay, so here's our standard terminal, just like you would have in your Mac or your Linux. Okay, so this is basically just a virtual Linux machine, and we're going to be using some Linux commands. All right, pre-installed in this IDE is something called Node, okay, or NPM or Node Package Manager. And you can see if you want to go through some documentation. So all Node Packet Manager is a collection of code, okay? And the Packet Manager says, access the internet and get somebody else's giant chunks of code. Now, we've done this before in settings where we've gone ahead and got, say, jQuery, or we've jumped ahead in here and we got Bootstrap and Font Awesome. Now, I didn't use Bootstrap or Font Awesome or jQuery in this project, but we're going to be adding it in just to show you how to add it in. That's why I've done it. So just like you would be using these chunks of code from somewhere else, all right, NPM will do that for you and just attach those files directly onto your project or file or site. And you're going to see that populate over here. So let's start off by showing you some commands. So we're going to be using Node and the Node package manager. So we know we're going to connect to GitHub as well. So we're going to have some things that we're going to be jumping back and forth. So we have some git commands for GitHub, and then we have some npm commands. Okay, so let's start off pretty basic, and let's go with git init, and that's going to initialize. See this git folder? All right, so now we have a folder that has all the information we need for a GitHub project. That's it. Just git init. Easy. So now we've initialized our project. After we've initialized our project, we can go ahead and start building our file structure. So the next command that I'm going to show you is going to be touch. Now, touch is a Linux command. That Linux command touches a file to change the timestamp, but it also, if there's no file that exists, it'll create that file. So right in your main directory, see how you're in workspace here? So I'm in Mark Snow and then workspace, and the main workspace is actually this JavaCalc is what it's called, but it's in the master, okay? But it has master now on it because it's on a master branch of a GitHub project, which is the main branch that we're using, which is the main project. And I'm still in the main directory, all right, which is what we want. And directory, again, is just a folder. So I'm going to touch, which means I'm going to create a new file. I'm just going to call it index.html. Index.html. Hit enter there. All right, so touch index.html. And you can see we have now an index.html file. And if we double click on it, it'll open up over here. Now we have a blank HTML file. The next command I want you to do is make directory, mkdir, make directory. So we're going to want to make two directories. We're going to want to make a CSS directory and a JavaScript directory. So make directory, CSS and space JavaScript, hit enter. And now I have a CSS folder and a JavaScript folder. They're both empty. Okay, so make directory. We also can change directory or CD, and I can CD or change directory into the CSS folder. And now you can see that I'm in workspace and CSS. All right, so now I'm inside of this CSS folder. All right, so now that I changed directory into CSS, I'm going to touch, I'll just call it index.css. And now you can see in my CSS folder, there's an index.csx file that I just created. Pretty cool. I'm going to cd ... and that means I'm going to go up a directory back into my master. So now I'm back into master, or this JavaCalc, and I'm going to cd into the JS folder. All right, so now I'm in the JS folder. So change directory, cd. And again, I'm going to touch. All right. And I'm going to call this index.js because it's going to be a JavaScript folder. Now I have a JavaScript and index.js. Now, it's important at this point. Remember, cd ... All right, what that's going to do is change your directory up one directory all the way up to our main here. All right, and if I want to take a look at what files I have in there, I could just type ls. You can see I have a README file, a CSS directory, an index.html, and a JavaScript directory. Pretty cool, right? ls command. All right, it's another good Linux command that you might want to know. And so right now we've used GitHub command, we've used Linux commands, and now we're going to go through. I'm going to show you some npm commands. Now the packet manager npm is basically for the front end and the back end. It has all kinds of stuff for the web pre-installed in it. And you can get all these different building blocks of code, which is kind of cool. But I'm going to use it to access just what I really want, which is something that manages just the front end. So I'm going to access Bower here. And here's Bower. And Bower is a simple package manager that has a lot of framework and stuff for the front end. Okay. And you can see if I want to get Bower, I can just use npm install Bower. And this -G just installs it globally in your whole project. But since we only have a single page application, we don't have to use this single page. But what does help is we have to make sure we're saving our changes here. So npm or Node Package Manager has been pre-installed on this virtual machine. If you're working locally, you're going to have to install npm locally on your machine in order for this to work. And you can follow the directions here to install npm on your local machine, but we don't have to because we're using a virtual machine that already has it installed. Nice, right? So npm install bower -- save. I always hit save at the end. I think it just saves it to it. I don't know if you have to or you have to just save before you push, but I always just save it at each step, which is just -- save. So I can install bower. And Bower is going to install a bunch of files that are going to allow me just to pull out some packages from the front end, and it only keeps the most up-to-date files or the best working files. If you notice that even with Bootstrap, the CodePen went into the beta version of that Bootstrap, and a lot of our stuff didn't work. So to make sure you went back to that 3.3.7, right? So we don't have to worry about that with Bower. However, what we do have to have is we do have to Bower. Let's see. We have to initialize Bower. And what initializing Bower does is going to say, name your workspace. Well, this is going to be the Java Calc. And then all these options we don't even need. So just enter, click, 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 click. All right. Are you sure you're good? Looks good. Yes. And what's important here is, hey, look at this. I have a JSON file. This JSON file is the heart of Bower and actually of npm as well, because this says we have a name of Java Calc, and it has my information on it, and it even has Bower component. All right, and right now it has different node modules, so this is what it's going to ignore, and these are going to be our dependencies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this up while I click this next instruction here. So I'm going to use Bower now, and I'm going to Bower install. Let's start off with jQuery. Let's install jQuery. All right, and I'll save that. And you'll see jQuery will try to go ahead in and save. And then now we have dependencies. So automatically in our JSON file, all right, remember JSON is just a type of data, right? So this is we have an object data with a bunch of nested object and arrays. And now we have something called a dependency. So right now we know that npm has installed Bower. So our program points to Bower and says, Bower, what do we need? And what we need is what we're dependent on, or the dependencies, and our project requires jQuery. And so Bower is going to manage jQuery. And it says that right now we're in a current version called 3.2.1. What this allows us to do is if all of our packages, like if we have Bower, Font Awesome, and Bootstrap, if we want to update all of those at once, we can just go Bower, update, right? And it'll update all of our packages together. Or if we only want to update one, we can go in and just change and update one of our dependencies at a time. So this is actually how you do this sort of in real life, because usually when you're building out projects and websites, you don't have this little settings button here that you can just say, oh, just connect to this, all right, like Bootstrap. What's going on? Well, this is what's going on. We actually have these things called dependencies, and we have to manage our packages. And this can become a little bit of a bear. If you're watching these videos, I don't know, a year, 2 years from now, and all these numbers are different, well, it's because they have updates. And currently, all of the things that I'm using right now work together. Now, the JavaScript calculator I use was just using vanilla JavaScript, and it's very simple and will work anyway because we don't actually need these dependencies, but for most of our other projects, we do. So there's our jQuery. We're going to Bower install Bootstrap as well. And we're going to install Bootstrap. You're going to see Bootstrap being added to our dependencies. And you notice that right away we know it's 3.3.7 because that's a good working version. It's not the beta, which helps us out. And then we can Bower install Font Awesome. Bower install Font Awesome. And you can see whatever version we're on Font Awesome. The one I'm really concerned about right now is the Bootstrap right there. So watch that. But so this is, you can change this right in this file if you want, and then update, and it'll work just as good because Bower keeps track of all the old packages as well, which is kind of cool. So we have Bower for installing all of our front-end libraries now. So we have front-end libraries. We have a index.css and an index.javascript file, which looks like what we have here. Let me close. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, right? So this should, probably get a good idea of where we're going with this. The Bower.json file. This has to be in your your main directory, okay? It can't be nested in a subfolder, which is why I said make sure you CD up to your main directory here, else it's not going to work. Okay, so here's our file structure here. Here's our components and our power components. You can see I have Bootstrap, and I have all these distributions here, and we're going to be grabbing the bootstrap.min.css, and you can take a look at what each of these are, the minified version versus the normal version versus the theme. I'm not sure what the theme is, but I know the normal version and the minified version just means that the minified one doesn't have spaces in its code, so it's not really readable. So it's a little bit smaller file. So it loads faster, supposedly, but you can see I have to tell now, I got to tell my program to navigate through this file structure to access this stuff. So that's what we're going to start getting into. All right, so now we have font awesome, power, index. Our entire file structure is good and set and ready to go here. However, we didn't connect to GitHub. All right, we started to, but we didn't actually go through and do that. So the first thing you want to do with GitHub, we init, right? We initialize that folder, okay? So git init, which is what you need to do. And you can follow just as soon as you start, it'll tell you what to do. Then add a README, which we have, and then we can go ahead and commit. And tac M is for a message. It's for first commit. So you go ahead and commit. All right. And so it's git commit dash M and then first commit. This is just some text that is going to show up on GitHub for your first commit. And it says, oh, look, there's all of these untracked files. Nothing to commit. So what should we do? Well, we need to git add. That's going to add all of the files. Okay. Now, when we just, I'm going to hit up again. Oh, look, now it created all those extra files and all those links to those files. All right. So it's usually you go through and you get add and you get commit and then you get push. But we can't just get push because the first thing we have to do is we have to tell GitHub that this is a remote. All right. So this is, we're going to be working on this remotely. And so here's the code here. And this is right in GitHub as soon as you start, as long as you don't click anything. But essentially it's git remote, add origin, and here's the origin, which is where this project is located on GitHub. Okay, so there you go. So git remote, add origin, and then you can go ahead and git push. And the first time you do it, it wants you to git push u origin master. So we can go ahead and do that. So it's going to be a git push. All right, and the Cloud9 works with the git push. When I tried to git push without the u origin master on the code anywhere, it didn't work. So no, just so you know. And so here's where you type in the username and then you type in your GitHub password. And notice it's hidden, so as I'm typing, you can't see it. I'll just hit enter, and it accepted my password. And there we go. It resolved anything that was wrong. And look, I have a new branch called master in my GitHub, and it just pushed the master, my local master, all right, my origin, my remote rather, to the origin, which was on GitHub here. So I had a master branch on my remote, and I pushed it to the origin. Now if I go over here to my Java calc, you should see I have all of my Bower components, JavaScript, and README files, your bower.json file, and your index.html. And congratulations, you now are pushing stuff up to GitHub to save it forever. Pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. All right, so that is the majority of the work done for the setup. Now it's copy and pasting, and we have to set up some more stuff in our index file. So I'm going to go ahead and before I copy and paste anything, I'm going to go over to the index file. And when you start this off, you know you're going to need an HTML tag. And you notice as soon as I start typing HTML in Cloud9, you get the snippet. So if I hit enter, it automatically knows, look, it sets up my doc type HTML, and it knows it's what I want. So I just hit return. If you're using another IDE that doesn't do that, you're going to have to type this out manually. The next thing that you need when you start off your HTML is we're going to need a head. So there's my head snippet. All right, so it's a head. So make sure you have a head. You can actually put a meta tag in a char set of UTF-8 if you need to, but for our single page applications, we're only going to be viewing it here, and it runs perfectly fine for what we need it. And you can also add a title in the head as well for the top of the web page, which is just a title. Okay. Title, if you want, go like this, and it'll add a title to, and you can kind of see how that adds it in there. And I'll just call this index, index for now, just so you know, in case you want to put that in. All right. We have to, when we load the page, we're only going to be loading this entire, we're not doing partials or anything. We're just doing one full site, okay? One full page right off this one document. We need to tell the browser to load things in a certain order. We need to tell the browser that we want not only this HTML code that's going to follow this, but in the body of this HTML, so you're going to have a body down here. But we need to actually load the CSS. We need to load the JavaScript file, and we also have to load the dependent files such as Bootstrap, Font Awesome, and jQuery. I'm going to show you how to get this running first, and then I'll show you how to access those three. We don't actually need to access those three for this project, but for all the other ones we do, so I'm just going to show you on this one. So let's go ahead, and the first thing I'm going to do is do a link. This link snippet, and what it knows right away that I'm going to want a style sheet here. The style sheet should cue you that it's going to be text or CSS, and you need an href. So that's talking about where do we find this at. Well, the first thing I'm going to link is just this index.css. So where do we find index.css inside of this directory or folder structure here? Well, it's just in, we already know we're starting at the main file because the index is already in this main file structure. So how do we move out of this main file structure? Well, from here, we're going to go directly into the CSS folder / index.css. Okay, and that's how we get access to the CSS. The next thing that we're going to need is we're going to need the, I'll add another one in here. I'll add another link snippet in here. And we're going to go from our, what do we call it? We want our JavaScript file, right? And this is going to be in the JS folder / index.js. Okay. We're going to have to move this. I'm telling you right now, we're going to have to move this because because of how we built this project out. But normally, this is where it goes. Okay, normally this is where it goes. And why don't we just keep going with this? Yeah, we'll keep going with this, and I'll show you how to add the other three things in there that we did. So we know we used Bootstrap and Font Awesome, which were CSS files as well, right? So let's see here. Oops, I messed up. Sorry. Got ahead of myself. This is actually this is a script snippet. Sorry, this is a script snippet. So JS / index.js. Remember, JavaScript is a script, not a link, not a style. Sorry, guys. What we do need is you need a new link snippet. So that was a script. Sorry, not a link. I just kept going. I didn't even glance over my notes. When I glanced over my notes, I realized that's what happens when you try to go too fast because I know this is going to be a long video. Anyway, so what other style sheets do we need? Well, let's go ahead and try to find our Bootstrap. So Bootstrap is inside of Bower Components, Bootstrap, dist, CSS, and then I want bootstrap.min.css. So I have to type all of that out right here. All right, so it's under Bower Components. Bower _ component. You gotta make sure you spell it right. Okay, so Bower Components, which is this, and then / bootstrap. Bootstrap / dist / CSS / bootstrap.in.css. That was a long one, right? So that's our Bootstrap. And again, we have to navigate through this file structure with that. So I'm going to close Bootstrap. Let's do Font Awesome. So Font Awesome is going to be Font Awesome CSS, Font Awesome min.css. So again, this one, again, is a style sheet. So it's just going to be a link. All right. So again, we're going to go with Bower. Oh, look, Bower component, since we already did, is there. Slash, where are we at? Font Awesome. Font Awesome. Slash CSS slash font awesome. And if you misspell or you have a typo here, this isn't going to work. So just try not to have any typos. .css. Awesome.min.css, which is the minified file. Again, it just is the, instead of loading an HTML file with all the nice little gaps like this, it's all just squished together. That's all it is. It's actually a CSS.html file, sorry. Anyway, here we go. So we have our links, then we have our scripts. Okay, so the script is different than our link. It's a JavaScript, so we need a script file to run our scripts, which is why there's a script tag here. The other script that we have to do is the order that we put scripts in matters. So generally, we need to access, if we're using jQuery in our index.js file, we should put jQuery in first, right? So the page is going to load in this order. It's going to find the CSS file. It's going to load everything in the CSS file. All right. Then it's going to go to Bootstrap. Then it's going to go to Font Awesome. If you want to go to Bootstrap, Font Awesome, then CSS next, so that way you don't see the change in the file. You'll see what I mean when I load this up. You can do that as well. So where is this located for our jQuery? jQuery is in source Bower components. Right, so okay, you see, I realize that. So Bower components, Bower components. Okay. See, when you click on one thing, it lights up other places too. That's another reason I like this. It'll show you like where this is. Make sure everything's spelled the same too. So it's under Bower components, jQuery, dist, jQuery min.js. So Bower components, jQuery slash dist slash jQuery dot min.js, right? .min.js. And you have to make sure all of this is correct. So this is probably the most annoying part. This is setting up all your head tags. So there's my head. All right, all that stuff works. So we're good to go. So this is the setup. So that's something we didn't have to worry about before. So now we can just go in here, Control-Alt, Control-C, Control-V, Control-S to save, right? I'm also going to add a little space in down here because you're going to see that this isn't going to work. I'm going to have to move my scripts here down the bottom for my JavaScript, but that's okay. The next is the CSS. Control-A, Control-C, Control-V, Control-S. See how I'm just saving it? So now I have all of my CSS and JavaScript over here. Control-A, Control-C, Control-V, Control-S, and all of that is saved. Now if I click on my index.html, I go to Preview and Preview File. You can see my JavaScript calculator. And it looks perfect, except my scripts aren't running. Oh no, oh no. This actually took me like an hour and a half to figure out, believe it or not, because I'm an idiot. But essentially, if you take a look at this, you can see how I'm calling these on-click, okay? Doesn't that sound like I want to run a script, right? If I try to run the scripts first and I link out to it, that's one thing. But since I'm calling those on-click functions down here, I need to be able to access those down here. So what I have to do is grab this script and put this inside of my body. So I'm going to Control-X that. And I want the page to load first and then run the script. So the script is make sure all this stuff loads and then start running scripts. So it's the bottom of the body. All right, I'm going to save that and I'm going to go ahead and preview this again. And you can see I have a working JavaScript calculator and the preview works. And I can also bounce this out to a new tab if I want. Perfect. So now I have everything that I want. I just have to make sure I go back and I save this again into GitHub. So if you remember how we do this, okay, it's going to be git add. And git add, you can add in a specific file, but if you hit space and then dot, it just adds in everything. All right, so it adds in everything that we have, and then you need to git commit space dash m, and then put working or whatever you have, because mine is actually working. All right, notice there's 3 files that have changed since last time and 132 insertions. All right, and now after I added it, I committed it saying, yes, we are good. This is what I want. Then I can git push it. Git push. What's my username? Password. Enter. And now we have a working project, all right, saved forever. You can see all of my files and all the file structure is all going to be here. If I go over, I refresh. Let's take a look at my index.html, and here it is. So my entire project is now saved up to GitHub. It's also saved over here on Cloud9, but since I have a free account, they do shut these off. So it's not saved forever. Where GitHub, it is saved forever, and you can pull this stuff down to your local machine if you have if you know how to do that. Right now we're just going to be using the virtual machines. You can actually pull this stuff into the virtual machine as well. But for what we're doing, we're mainly going to be doing most of our work by starting these simultaneously and not really modifying a whole lot. But you could always pull this as well. Just like we pushed up, we can pull down. All right, so that's Cloud9. That's GitHub. That's actually taking all of this stuff and making sense out of it in real life, right? So that is all for today. Even though, that is all. That was a long video, I know. But again, hopefully this stuff was helpful to you, and I will see you all next time.